I'm tired, a bit overwhelmed, and I was thinking about pushing this off until a more convenient time, but I just need this. Anderson and Malteri have been pulling down that hot air balloon for 11 parts in this interrogation review, and Grant is finally on the ground, firmly in the realm of reality where he has to answer for his lies. You know that we know that you know more than you're saying, Grant. You know that we know that you had more to do with it than you're admitting. You know that Sylvie's never going to show up, so it's time to start telling the truth, Grant. And maybe it's a coincidence, or maybe they had it planned this way, but Anderson gets one more good sniping comment in with that wonderful detective doublespeak at Grant. And I think maybe it's just because they've had all they can stand and they can't stand no more with Grant's portrayal of himself as a meaningless blob of molecules that can't do anything for himself and wants everyone else to take care of it for him. But if you remember where we left off in part 11, Grant was just riding high on that creative wave and adding all these extra details to his cover story and to these characterizations of his victims of the crime that hasn't been mentioned yet, but will be shortly. And he's just been adding more of the same details, so more of Cody always helping him out, mom being supportive, and dad, of course, being angry and violent and dangerous. So in the course of that, Anderson says, pretending to be sympathetic while totally talking down to him. So you're scared of him. And I know it's embarrassing as you're a 29-year-old man, but you're scared of your father. And at what age does the average male human stop being scared of their dad? Is it 14, maybe 15, when a boy will say, what are you going to do about it, Dad? I'm full of testosterone and aggression, and I don't even know who I am as a person yet, so I might just do something crazy that I'll regret later, and your back and knees hurt every day. You moan when you sit down, you groan when you have to stand up. What are you going to do about it? But Grant is saying, yeah, I was afraid for my life. I don't have any weapons, and I don't even have a key to the house. So yeah, I was scared. And not only is that just to go along with the story he's been presenting, it's also his way of life, which is why he's okay to make himself pathetic, because that's the pattern of behavior he's fallen into, is to allow others to do the work for him, not only in the things that we've covered so far in this review, but also in this interrogation itself. He's implying this crime so that the detectives can go solve it for him, so that he doesn't have to say it himself. He can just be uninvolved and then walk off and go home and jerk off to some more internet porn. So what does he get instead? The ultimate cock block. Because instead of the detectives taking care of it for him and doing the work for him, it's the part we've all been waiting for. If you're skipping ahead in this interrogation to the juicy part, this is probably the part you're skipping ahead to, where Anderson says, so, Grant, you've been in here with us talking for a couple hours now. Why do you think we're having this conversation? And Grant uses the favorite word of dishonest people, honestly. Honestly, I have no idea. I'm telling you this is honest, therefore it is. So everything else I've been saying could have been a lie, but this is honest. It's the lowest hanging fruit of liars. And he's running out. He's starting to run out of energy to perform this anime. And so he's grabbing for that lowest hanging fruit. And Anderson and Malteri, in response to that, begin an interesting strategy. Whether it's an official strategy or simply just the way their personalities mesh, it works. And Anderson's gotten a lot of criticism from people who see this interrogation that he kind of tries a lot of tactics that don't really work on Grant, and he just rambles about nothing and it's ineffective. But I think this might actually be part of FBI training, the way that they do this, because everyone knows already about good cop, bad cop, and have for decades. if you're going to an interrogation room, you probably are saying, oh, they're probably going to do good cop, bad cop on me. How am I going to react to the good cop, bad cop routine? Oh, you're being aggressive, so I guess this other guy's going to be the good cop. And everyone knows that and is prepared for it. But what Anderson and Malteri do is what I've come to think of as rambling cop, direct cop. And it's a great strategy because the average criminal is much more impulsive than the average non-criminal. Probably even the most pathological and patient of criminals is far more impulsive than the most impulsive non-criminal. It's an impulsive way to live your life, to just give in to some urge that occurs to you. You're not thinking the second thought of, but that's actually something stupid to do and it just never should be done in reality. You're just starting to plan for how to get away with it instead of thinking it's too stupid to do. That's an impulsive way to think and live your life. So yeah, the average criminal is just going to give in to that urge, and they're more likely to take shortcuts than to deal with something the hard way or the more rewarding way. So how this strategy works in this interrogation is Anderson will go off on these long philosophical tangents. He'll be telling his life story and basically saying everything he's been holding in for 2 hours while Grant's been rambling. And Grant will just stare at Anderson blankly, trying to figure out what he's trying to say and how he's going to respond to it. It's obvious what he's trying to say. He's trying to get Grant to tell more of the truth. Grant knows that. It's very obvious, but he can't figure out the point that Anderson is trying to make with what he's saying or how Grant should respond to it in a way that makes himself look innocent. So he'll just stare at him, and then suddenly Malteri next to him will interrupt with a short, quick, direct question. And Grant will right away just answer that. It's like, oh, I can't figure this out, so I'm just going to quickly answer this question. That's easy. That's an easy question. And he's trying to take that shortcut, giving into that urge, as criminals do. So that's why I'm thinking it might be part of FBI training, but I'm no expert in that field. I'm just calling it like I see it. So he will be distracted by that rambling and then just put no thought into the quick question at the end of it. And how that ends up sounding is, so Anderson is he's practically quoting Spaceballs. You remember that scene in Spaceballs where they're watching the movie of their own movie? And they're like, "Now we're in the now. This is now. We're past then. This is now." Anderson's like, "Grant, now's the time. There's never been another time like now. This is the exact time. The exact time is now. There will never be another time more like this time that is exactly now. You have to tell the truth. The time for telling the truth is now. Once you tell the truth, I'm telling you the truth, so you have to tell the truth back to me. And then I'm going to be honest with you. I can help you, but you have to tell the truth because now's the time to tell the truth. And there's never been a better time than now to tell the truth. And once you tell the truth, I can help you, and that'll be the time for me to help you after you tell the truth." And then Malteri will just jump in with "Did you see anything else near the house?" And Grant will be like, "Yeah, I saw a news van and a gate and a driveway," and that will undermine his story because he put no thought into his answer for that, trying to get out of it the easy way. He was trying to get out of it with a quick question and a quick answer, and he put no thought into the answer, and he undermines his story. So it works great. And Anderson would even later on, if you've been criticizing Anderson and you're wondering why he does this strategy and you don't want to just take my word for it, you can watch him in the trial because he gives the reasons for the way he's doing. He's basically his thesis for all of his actions in this is that he's trying to gauge a response. Even when he says things that aren't true, he's trying to gauge a response and see how he acts versus how an innocent person would act. And this works great for getting a response from Grant because he's undermining his own story by his response to this rambling cop, direct cop strategy. And if it's intentional, it's brilliant and should be done on all criminals. So the accusations are intensifying, and unfortunately, that also means that Grant's vocal slime is thickening. His voice is getting slower. He's starting to get foggier with the details. It's getting more frustrating to watch. Put on your ponchos because we're going to get covered in this slime as Grant secretes the encapsulating film of it around himself to hide. He's starting to say things that don't give it, like, just, I don't even know what to say. I literally don't have the words to say. I can't even comprehend the way to say the words. And amidst all this evasion and lying and playing dumb, this is true. These statements, I don't know what to say. I don't know how to say this. It's very true. Some of the truest statements in the whole thing, in the whole interrogation. These are some of the truest statements because there is nothing to say. There's no explaining his actions or motives for what he did. There's no rational way in reality that you could describe it just with a straight face. I'm sure it made sense in his head as he was planning the crime. But he never told it to anybody. He never ran it through the filter of someone else's perspective because you couldn't say it out loud. It's too stupid. It's too pathetic to plan to give away more than you have to get less than nothing in return for porn. It's too stupid. And in his head, it made sense because that's where fantasies live. Fantasies that don't make sense in reality live in your head. Anything can exist. Shit tornado, hurricane full of dead fish. None of those need to become reality. They'd probably be a spectacular vision. What a thing to see. But I would never want to see them in reality. And that's what these criminals, that's their defect, is that they think these fantasies need to come into reality where they shouldn't belong. And now they get here and there's no explaining it. There's no rationalizing it. It's like trying to describe what's inside the event horizon of a black hole. It's beyond the laws of physics that humans currently know. We can perceive what's going on around the black hole, the effects it's having on what we can observe. But we, as Grant says, we literally can't conceive the words to describe what's going on inside a black hole because we just can't observe it. What's outside the observable universe, we can't come up with the words. We don't know the words to say. And that's where Grant is. That's why he never admits to guilt. To this day, he hasn't admitted to guilt, and why he has to believe that his relationship with Sylvie was something legitimate. So, yeah, soak it in while you can. That's one of the only honest things he's going to say in this whole interrogation. He can't admit to the guilt. He can't tell the truth. He can't come up with the words to say to rationalize his motive for committing the crime because it makes no sense in reality. And other than that, and in between that, intermittently, we just have increasingly ridiculous attempts to appear innocent by Grant. And it peaks early on in his attempts because unlike Chris Watts, who just kind of snowballed where he would try to look innocent, make himself look guilty, try even harder to look innocent and look even guiltier, and it kept getting worse and worse and worse until he just ended up in handcuffs. Grant is self-aware enough to realize that he's making himself look guilty, so he shuts down pretty quick. But before then, we do have something to behold as far as how guilty he makes himself look by trying to look innocent. This really is something, and it's just Eva Marie Malteri simply asks if he did anything to his family before he left, going along with his cover story. Okay, you left and everyone was fighting. Did you do anything before you left? And Grant simply says no. And there are varieties of ways that innocent people can answer that question, and none of them are the way that Grant answers the question. And it probably made sense in his head beforehand. He's like, okay, I'm going in there. I'm going to have to pretend to be a meaningless blob of molecules, a weak, wimpy milksop who couldn't solve any of his own problems that he created, let alone someone else's. So if anyone asks Grant, do you know what happened at your house? No. Did you have anything to do with it? No. Did you see anything? No. That's how he's planning it ahead of time. I'm the weak wimp who can't take care of any business. So, but then transplanting that into this situation where we are now when it's asked of him with increasingly intense and rapid fire questions, where it's building up, it doesn't sound right because at this point he should be curious and urgent and angry and upset about what is emerging here. And he's not. He's trying to go with the act that he planned beforehand to be weak and wimpy and aloof to everything. And it just sounds ridiculous because, and props to Malteri, because they know how to, the more questions you ask and the more that the guilty suspect answers, the worse they're going to look. So it ends up sounding like, before he left, did you do anything to Cody? No. Did you do anything to Mom? No. Did you do anything to Dad? No. Are you an incel? No. Do you like anime? No. Do you like cam girls? No. Is about how genuine Grant sounds when he's answering this. We can call that the song of guilt. So, if that musical delivery wasn't disingenuous enough, Grant is about to try some acting. And that's about all of the embarrassment he can take. That's about all the energy he has left to lie before he shuts down. So we'll get to that in part 13, and I'll see you next time.